This episode of On the Limb with Nature's Voice Game Calls is brought to you by Backwater Truck Supply, located at 100 Armor Creek Road in Nitro, West Virginia, right across from the Town & Country Supply. Contact them today at 304-610-8699 or check them out at backwatertrucksupply.westvirginia.com. Backwater Truck Supply specializes in accessoring your ride to your liking, new or old. Does your Jeep or truck need lifted or leveling kit installed? They've got you covered. New tires or minor automotive repairs? They got you covered there as well, with a full-service lift along with a wheel balancing machine. They are affiliates with some of the top brands in the automotive industry. Contact them today at 304-610-8699 or check them out at backwatertrucksupply.westvirginia.com. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of On the Limb with Nature's Voice Game Calls. Tonight, we've got a very special guest, native here in West Virginia. But first, we've got Dan Hall on the road again. He's not here in the studio. And neither is Dave Young on the studio, but we've got them on the phone, so they're both here with me. How you guys doing?
Doing well, Mike. Dave, hope you're doing well as well.
Yeah, doing well. Good to be here.
You know, sometimes we got to improvise and get everybody in here because it's just not the same with one person.
No, it never is. And I'm glad we got this new system and we have the abilities to do it how we're doing it now.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's amazing. I'm telling you, man. Well, turkey season is starting to wind down here in West Virginia, and it's kind of starting to wind down all over the country, but there's actually some states that are just now starting to get pretty active, I'm pretty sure. But, you know, West Virginia here, we're done. You know, some people killed some turkeys, and we had some good luck, but some people's just had an amazing, stellar season, like the man we're getting ready to talk to. So, Nathan Taylor, how you doing this evening, sir?
Hey, fellas. Thanks for having me on, and I'm doing better than I deserve.
I hear you, brother. Well, I tell you, from what I've heard and what I've read on Facebook there, you've had one heck of a season, traveling over 12 states and completing 2 single-season Grand Slams this year.
Yeah, it one for the ages, man. I don't know that I can put another season together like this one, maybe in the rest of my lifetime.
Yeah, I was reading your Facebook post there that you posted the other day, and you've been trying to get this done for, what, 31 years, you said?
Well, that post when I was talking about 31 seasons in the making.
There you go, yeah.
This is my 31st spring turkey season. You know, started as a kid.
Yeah.
Way back, 31 springs ago, and, when you're a little kid and spring gobbler season was just kind of starting to be the in thing, based upon the restoration efforts and stuff by, state game agencies and the National Wild Turkey Federation, getting started out, those first couple of years of just trying to learn, as a kid with your dad, watching videos, going to seminars that you're seeing at local sporting goods stores and watching the Primos guys on TV, et cetera. You just dream about that first one you're getting in West Virginia, and, you just never dreamed that what I did this past spring would ever be something that would be even in the realm of possibility in my wildest dreams, much less happen.
Oh, yeah.
You go back and think of that kid when he was, 10, 12 years old.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about how you're getting into started turkeying and when you was a kid. Tell us a little bit more about you. Where are you from? How'd you grow up? Your dad was always a hunter and run through your family and all that?
Yeah. I live in Sandyville, West Virginia. It's a few miles north of Ripley and about the northern half of Jackson County. Lived here my whole life and got introduced to the outdoors. Obviously my dad hunted, trapped, was kind of his couple biggest outdoor passions. My grandfather as well, very avid hunter as well. So, just grew up squirrel hunting, deer hunting, turkey hunting, that kind of thing. And, as age and progression goes, you just kind of start filling out what's your thing. And it just something about a spring sunrise and a turkey gobbling and answering a call just became, my thing out of all those outdoor pursuits as a child.
So y'all deer hunted as well?
Pardon?
So y'all deer hunted as well?
Yeah. I deer hunt. Still, I don't know, deer hunting something to do in the fall to pass the time.
Yeah.
Every now and then I may want to hit a little bit harder than usual, but I'm starting to get to the point in life now. My son he's 9. He likes to deer hunt, and I could just about care less if I ever shot another deer in the rest of my life again or not.
That engulfed with turkey hunting, huh?
Yeah.
I think it's awesome to have, I've not always been the turkey hunter that my brother was. Give you a little history behind our business. Since we've never met, we've just talked through social media, but my brother started making mouth calls when he was about 16 years old, and here he is 46, and he's like, I think we need to make a business out of this. And I'm like, well, if you want to do it, I'll help you run it. I'll do the back end business stuff, and you can still make the calls. So 2 years after we created the business, he passed away. So I've been learning how to do most everything turkey call wise. Since then, of course, I've kind of found my way now, but those first 4-5 years was kind of rough. I had seen him make mouth calls, and I'd seen him do the wood products and things like that, and had more to do with the wood products than the mouth calls. But he never had a press. He had little notches that he had created and on his table, and that's how he knew where to stretch his mouth calls. He never knew the actual tension. Now I know the tension. I've worked all those tensions out and things to get the same kind of sounds that we were getting then. But, he done it all through just spending time in the woods and listening to turkeys. And literally, Dan can tell you, this man would quit a job to go turkey hunting.
Yes, he would.
That's how much he loved it.
A good job. Not just any job. I'm talking good jobs.
Yeah. Not just your, run-of-the-mill jobs. He could be making good money. And if they wouldn't let him off turkey hunt, he'd be like, peace. So I know how that passion is. And the passion for me for turkey hunting's gotten stronger over the years being in this business, but I've always been a deer hunter. I've done more deer hunting when I was younger, but we turkey hunted a lot, but it was always him killing the turkeys. I mean, this past season, I killed my first bird I've killed since I was a teenager. So I'm glad I got to experience that with Dan, which is my brother's best friend's son-in-law. So that's pretty cool.
I got you.
So, talking on our business, you kind of have your own business. You're the owner of Hire Calling Custom Turkey Calls. Why don't you talk a little bit about that for us?
Yeah, that's one of those deals that was, a hobby that turned into a nightmare of sorts. I think's a good way to describe that. I was, 6-7 years ago, I started getting call kits and putting together pots and finishing them and stuff. And I thought, what? I think I could make one of these. My dad built trough style calls in the 90s and early 2000s. He was a retired carpenter now.
Yeah.
And he could build anything out of wood. And, I got to thinking I can do this. There's so often that you hear people, or you run into people, it's like, oh, I've got one of your dad's turkey calls and I killed my first turkey with it, or I called my son's first turkeys in with it, or this or that. And, it's always cool to hear those stories, and you just kind of think, I'd kind of like to be able to do that, to leave that type of legacy in something I build.
Oh, yeah.
So, I bummed a lathe off of somebody, and I took a wood blank to Woodcraft and said, I need the jaws and tools to do this. So they got me set up with everything, and I've never ran a lathe before in my life. I had no idea what I was doing. And, found some videos on YouTube. So I'm out on I got an extension cord running out the window of the basement. And I got a table set up outside of the patio.
Yeah.
And this is like February. It's like 25 degrees outside. And I've got YouTube up, and I'm like hitting play, pause, play, pause, play, pause, back up, play, pause. And, I turned some of these first pots, and they were atrocious. They looked okay. But
Yeah.
I didn't realize how important internals were. So, you get poking around trying to find some help, and there was a man by the name of Jack Lewis in Missouri that was the first guy to reach out to me, and he said, "Look, you're making a musical instrument, whether you realize it or not."
Yes, sir.
And there are certain measurements that have to be, your internals and your measurements have to be certain things.
Yep.
And, he gave me some ranges, and I remember I asked him, I said, "Well, can you get, a little bit more specific than that range?" And he said, "No." He said, "If I get any more specific," he said, "then you're just making
my call.
You're making a Jack Lewis call and not a Nathan Taylor call." And, I just thought that, that was, some pretty profound advice in life anyway, in terms of, not wanting to try to live your life like others or do whatever.
Definitely.
And I just kind of took those ranges and just started working on it. And then, you get something that starts to sound good, and then you just keep replicating that. And then, you keep on, growing and developing, and chasing your sound. And, right now I'm actually, in the stages right now of probably making about the fifth generation of internals on my glass calls, just trying to get where I want to be. In terms of pots with glass surface, my slates are on about their third or fourth gen. I can tell you about 20 different ways to not make an aluminum pot call. I finally figured out aluminum, back last fall, back in the winter, making a pretty good aluminum pot. So, I got into, pots is, what, I may be the most known for. 2019, I won NWTF Amateur Call Maker of the Year with a pot call. Placed in 2024 in the glass division, but kind of evolved as a call maker. My dad built trough style calls, like I was mentioning, in the 90s, early 2000s. A call maker friend of mine from Arkansas, Jackie Lee, when I was talking to him about, my background in call making and this and that, I remember Jackie asking me, he's like, "Well, do you know how to build troughs yet?" I said, "No." A couple weeks later, talking to Jackie, he said, "Have you asked your dad how to build trough calls yet?" "No." A couple weeks later, just touching base, talking to Jackie, he said, "Nathan," he said, "have you asked your dad to teach you how to build trough calls yet?" I said, "No, Jackie, I haven't." He said, "Nathan," he said, "it's the last time I'm going to tell you this." He said, "If I ask you next time I talk to you, I'm never speaking to you again." He said, there's a lot of things that my dad knew how to do. And Jackie said, "My dad's no longer on this earth for me to ask him how to do this."
Wow.
And he said, "As your friend," he said, "I will be upset if you don't ask your dad to teach you to do these." So I took that to heart. About 5 years ago, Dad and I made the first set of troughs together. He always made his out of cedar. I've taken that design and tweaked that a little bit now to where, I'll do cedar, rainbow poplar, apple, persimmon, wide range of different things there. With troughs, I've been pretty successful with that. I've won the Keystone Call Making Contest with a trough. I've been second, third, fourth at Grand Nationals with troughs, second, fourth at the World Championship Buckeye Challenge. So, trough things are just that call is just it's a special thing that I make now, just knowing that I'm carrying on a design and a call that my dad had made 25 years ago. The first turkey I ever called in by myself as a kid was with a trough call that my dad had built. So
that's awesome.
Awesome.
We've got that. And then, for whatever reason, a couple of years ago, if that wasn't enough, I got into building box calls. I've been doing that now for about 2 or 3 years, just as something to, I don't know, you can only watch stuff spin around on a lathe so many times.
Yeah.
Before that gets old. So I'll usually do a run of box calls in late summer, fall, and that's kind of what I do for the year there, just to have something to break things up. But that's pretty much, in terms of what I build in the shop, pots with a variety of services, trough calls, and dabble with some box calls. I do a handled design short box. It's not something with a base. There's everything affects everything. And when I was wanting to get into building box calls, I didn't want to do like the traditional cost style with a base, because that's more variables.
Yeah.
The width, the thickness of your base, all those things. And there's a handful of guys that have built handled boxes that I own some of theirs. And I don't know. I just took a liking to that. It's kind of like, if you're at the county fair and you go to the carnival, do you want a hot dog or a corn dog? Well, it's a whole lot easier to, walk around the fair and enjoy it with the corn dog when you got that handle compared to a sloppy, messy, hot dog. So I just kind of, it's just easier for me. Like I say, there's just something about holding that handle to run that call. So that's what I'm doing with short boxes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask if yours were like multi-pieces or are they a two-piece call?
Yeah, mine's just, the whole base and body. It's one solid piece of wood and then the lid. So it's not something where it's a body with a base that's glued to it.
That's cool.
Match the lid or whatever. So
yeah, that's good. Those are pretty nice. I like those.
Yeah, but that's again, call making in a nutshell. That's what I do. You were talking about the passion about turkey hunting. I mean, I'm pretty much at the point that there's not a day that goes by in life that I'm not sitting here trying to figure out how to make certain pieces of wood sound like a turkey, or I'm trying to think about where can I go to kill a turkey. That's a daily occurrence, whether that's first thing in the morning or before I go to bed or sometime in between.
Yep.
That's a thought that's in my mind daily.
And I picked that up. It's funny that you're saying this now because it's, I picked that up from just, following you on Facebook and, reading your stories and things like that, the passion that you have for turkeys. And I was like, man, this he's got the passion that my brother had. So, I mean, not only we need to have him on the podcast to talk about his season, but we need to have him on just to talk about how passionate he is about turkey hunting.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you, man. I mean, it's just odd to think that the interest that you have in pursuing, whether that's hunting a wild animal or trying to make sounds that imitate that wild animal. But I mean, some of the best friends I have in life right now are people that I've met through building calls or turkey hunting.
Yeah.
If you go to Nashville to the NWTF convention, there's people there from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, upbringings, jobs, careers, religions, race, whatever it is, but they're all there for a common purpose. The wild turkey is what links them together, and I just find that so unique to know that, like I say, a lot of people that I would have never met in life had I not got into call making. Oh
yeah, and we just had Jason Bussey. I don't know if you know Jason or not. He's from Alabama. I'm sure you've heard about him. But he was just here in West Virginia hunting with me, and he has been a mentor to me since my brother passed. I mean, I needed some guidance in this industry and doing these things. And I had a couple call makers in the NWTF that called in the Grand Nationals, and we were on stage there for a while. We had Richard Gunn on our team for a while. We had Tracy Lee Pedretti on our team for a while. And I had some people making some of our mouth calls. And Troy Smith. Troy Smith is an amazing mouth call maker. And that's what our business was founded on, was mouth calls. So I needed somebody to carry that on, even if it wasn't the exact call that my brother had. It was our designs and it was our cuts. So I needed somebody to carry those on until I could take over. So about 2 years later, I started doing them myself. So it was a process, and I had I enjoyed learning it. And Jason was a big help along the way in doing that. So he took over. He was the previous owner of Southland Custom Game Calls, which was previously owned by Jim Pollard. I'm sure you've heard of Jim Pollard.
Absolutely, yes.
And he's had a rich history in the turkey calling industry for over 35 years.
Yes.
Well, Dan, I think you've got our salute to valor ready. That's one of the things that we like to do on every podcast, is we like to do a salute to our veterans. And, we couldn't be sitting here today talking about this amazing, sport that we love if it wasn't for our veterans out there fighting for our freedoms.
That's correct. We could not. I think we might be Germans. But no, so tonight our salute to valor is going to go out to Larry White III from Savannah, Tennessee. He was in the United States Air Force as well as the U.S. Army. He was a staff sergeant, and he served from, I would assume, the Air Force from 81 to 84, and probably the Army from 2000 to 2008. He had He was in Iraq 2 times once. Or no, I'm sorry. He was in Iraq, Germany, and he had 2 tours to Taji. He was awarded several awards in Iraq, Germany, and stateside, to include a Combat Action Badge, Iraqi Campaign Ribbon, Humanitarian Award, Army ACOM ×3, and an Army Achievement Award ×4. He retired 2008, December 28th, 2008. Leroy, we really appreciate your service, and it's amazing that you got out the first time and then rejoined.
Yeah.
Again.
That's what I was going to say. Wow,
yeah,
that's crazy.
So looking at it, he obviously had a purpose. If he joined back in 2000, it's kind of the whole Iraqi era of things. So
definitely. Yeah, and I wonder sometimes how many of those service members at that time were out and retired and just re-enlisted because of what happened during that day.
Oh, there was quite a few. I know several of them. So
I believe this is our first salute that's been the case.
Yeah, I believe it is, Michael.
That's pretty cool. Well, Leroy, thank you for your service, sir, to our great country, and God bless you.
Yeah, thank you for your service, for sure.
All right, let's get back into some turkey calls. So that Southland game calls that I was telling you about, that was also, it was owned originally, I think it was originally created, Junior Robinson was the one that created that business from start. So Jason Bussey worked alongside Junior Robinson there for a long time before he actually bought the business. So
okay, but
so you've visited 12 states this year. Tell us a little bit about those travels.
Okay, well, I guess we'll just start at the beginning. Started off the season in Florida. I've got a friend that owns about 60 acres down there that sits between 2 cattle ranches, and he's just got an oak hammock that's just kind of the shady place to hang out from the Florida heat there. So went down to Florida and killed a bird that morning right off the roost, called him in, and then got one that evening. So Florida was wrapped up quick.
Wow.
Next hunt was in Georgia. I wasn't the trigger guy or the hunting person there. I was talking earlier about people that I wouldn't have met if it wasn't for building turkey calls. But, one of my best friends in the whole world right now is a guy from Beckley, West Virginia named Tim Murdoch. Met Tim a couple of years ago. A guy got a hold of me and said, hey, I'm wanting to get a call for Tim. And he said, he's got certain sounds he likes. He said, if you can send sound files to him and me, I'll talk to him. And when we find out what he wants, I'll let you know which one he likes. I want to get it for him. For those of you who don't know Tim, Tim's a guy that you'll see maybe on some different turkey pages on Facebook running box calls, got a black beard, sunglasses. Tim is 100% completely blackout blind. Tim can't see shadows, shades, anything.
Really?
Oh, wow.
He lost his eyesight about 8 or 10 years ago. But anyhow, Tim and I, we just hit it off. We're both from West Virginia, both passionate turkey hunters, both passionate about custom turkey calls, etc. And we just hit it off. And, I met Tim. We started talking that around Christmas. And then that following spring, invited him up to Jackson County to hunt. My buddy Ross Mellinger and I took Tim out. And I told Ross, I said, we're taking Tim Murdoch with us. He said, okay, that sounds great. I said, Tim's going to kill a turkey. And Ross said, I've never doubted you before in life, and I'm not going to now, but do you know what you're trying to do? I said, oh, yeah. I said, it won't be no problem. So anyhow, I got Tim set up with a rig. I've got a 20 gauge at Remington 870 with a shotgun scope, and we just set up in a ground blind, and I'll put that 20 gauge in a ball death grip to hold it when we call birds into the decoys. I just turned my cell phone onto the camera mode, and then Tim, he's holding the gun, aiming, and I'm just whispering to him where he needs to move the gun to get the reticle on a turkey. So, he shot that bird in West Virginia, and then the past 2 springs, we've been invited down to Statesboro, Georgia, to hunt with the KT team.
Oh yeah,
they're a nonprofit organization that raises funds to a variety of different fundraising efforts to take hunters with disabilities so they can go and continue to enjoy the outdoors. So,
yes.
And Tim and I, like I said, we went down there the last 2 springs, this past spring. So when we were down in Georgia, We hunted Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday morning, literally maybe 30, 40 minutes before we needed to head home. Tim and Shane Martinez from Florida called a bird in, and Tim was able to get one there Wednesday morning. So that was state number 2. Had an opportunity to head to North Carolina right off the bat for its opener. That morning, killed a bird about 8:30, 9 o'clock that morning. I hunted that weekend in North Carolina. Then came back home, basically was just waiting for West Virginia to come in then. Again, mentioned, my son, he's 9 years old. He's ate up with turkeys. Hunting in general. He likes to hunt, play soccer, and that's about it. So
that's good.
He was able to get one youth day, and then that first week of season, one morning before school, him and we doubled, I think, Wednesday morning, and then I took off on a Western trip that was just, beyond my wildest dreams. I was hoping to try to hit California, Oregon, and Washington State in about a week. And I thought if I was lucky, I'm flying out. I was flying in one way to Sacramento, getting a rental, working my way north, and was flying back home to Charleston out of Spokane, Washington. I thought maybe I could get Idaho if I'm lucky. And, I mean, the stars more than aligned, and I just got on a roll. Killed probably the prettiest Rio Grande I've ever seen in my life. Not that I've seen very many, but in California, hunting in a walnut orchard, which was a very cool experience. These birds were roosted along the Sacramento River in some cottonwoods. They flew across the levee, just bam, right into where we were set up that morning, right off the bat. Loaded up the rental, headed to Oregon, roosted some birds that evening. They were in a big wheat field, about 400 or 500 yards away from the access road, and just watched them with some hens and saw where those birds went into to roost that evening. And the next morning, the only cover I had was a machine shed. So I'm sitting beside a tire on an old International tractor.
Oh, nice.
Because I said that was about the only cover. Right there beside where those birds roosted, and a little bit of tree calling, but they flew down right in the wheat field, right in front of me. It was just waiting for them to present a shot. So, Oregon, that hunt lasted again 5-6 minutes. Loaded up the car, headed to Idaho. Drove around that evening, dropping pins near National Forest ground, trying to find places to where I could find a bird. And then made milk runs the next day and got an Idaho bird, and wasn't scheduled to be hunting Washington until Thursday. So I realized when I'm in the panhandle of Idaho how close I was to Montana. Called Montana Fish and Wildlife to ask, hey, do I need a draw, or can I get your tags over the counter? And yeah, you can get them over the counter. So got an over the counter tag to Montana. Called one of my buddies, Brian Tanner, who's elk hunted all over Montana, and said, dude, this is where I'm at. And, where should I go?
Yeah.
And he started telling me to go to Billings because he knew a lot of people in the Billings area. I'm like, man, I flew across the country. I drove 7 hours the next day, 7 hours the next day. I've been in this car since daylight, hunting this morning. I said, I don't have an 8-hour drive in me right now, dude. So, he got me on a route from where I was at to go to Missoula, and I'm driving. I get almost to Thompson Falls, and I see a coffee shop. I'm like, man, that hit the spot right now. Go in the coffee shop and order a coffee, and the lady asked if I need anything else. I said, I'll take a blueberry muffin, and I'd like to know where I could kill a turkey at. She's like, well, my husband could probably help with that. So, he brings up his Ornex, and he showed me places that, he's like, in the fall, these are block management areas. He said that means, it's public access in September 1. He said it's not block management in spring. He said, but if they let anybody come in and go in there with high-powered rifles and shoot deer and elk, he said, I'm sure if you ask, they'll let you turkey hunt. And he said,
my
by
goodness.
the way, here's how you can go into National Forest. So anyhow, drive around there and find a bird on private ground. Nobody's home. And, I just drop out. I drop a pin, and literally every hour, I just keep driving back. And then finally the guy's home. And, I pull in, and, what you've got to realize is, Montana's a wonderful state, but I don't know how much they really care for people that are outsiders. And my rental car's got California tags.
Oh God.
So I jump out of this car. I jump out of this little SUV, this little Kia.
They probably think you're
I'm
the
like,
census guys again coming to the front door.
I don't know what they're thinking, but I walk up to them and I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm Nathan Taylor from West Virginia. Ignore the tags. That's a rental. I'm not from that place." And he's like, "Well, you're starting the conversation out pretty good, buddy." And I'm like, "Well, I'm out here turkey hunting." I said, "I've never been to this." I said, I've never been here before in my life, but you've got, I noticed you got a turkey over here that I wouldn't mind to hunt." And he's like, "Well, okay, He's like, in terms of hunting the farm, he's like, "You see those trees?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "From those trees downstream, you can hunt. From those trees upstream, you can't." I said, "No problem."
Yeah.
And, went over later that evening and boom, got set up and got that bird.
Wow.
So, I wake up the next morning and I'm like, "Okay, what am I going to do now?" I'm like, I'm 6 hours from Yellowstone. I've never seen Yellowstone. Do I want to be a tourist? And I thought, I don't want to fly all the way across the country to hunt Washington when everything around, I've got a bird in already. So I go back to Washington and get my license, get 3 tags, and just start heading north up 395, I think was the route. Anyhow, just start gridding properties and find birds and, see birds, bring up my 1X, find out, where the birds are at and go over and knock on the door. And the guy's like, he's like, "I don't know why." He's like, "Yeah, He said, "I had a guy here the other day from Tennessee." He's like, "I just don't know why anybody would come all the way out here to shoot these silly things, but whatever."
Wow.
So I go over, get set up on that bird, and 20 minutes later, boom, he's in range. Next morning, chase birds, and just nothing happening. And I was going to do a guided hunt in Washington. He gets a hold of me and says, "You want to hunt this evening instead of tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Yeah, buddy, I'm game." So drove, met him, second place that we go set up, kill a bird with him, and this is Wednesday, and I'm like, "Man, I ain't supposed to fly home till Sunday." So I got on my phone, moved my flight back to Thursday, moved it up, and I woke up the next morning and it's 4 a.m. out there. But it's 3-hour time difference. My bladder thinks it's 7 p.m. I'm like, I've got 6 hours. I need to be at the airport, and I know where turkeys are at 40 minutes from me.
Yeah.
And I go up and kill my third Merriam in Washington that morning and have just enough time to get back to the airport. I mean, I needed to be at the airport at like 10 a.m. I think I pulled in at like 9:57 to get checked in. So, I mean, that was that run. And then came back home, rested up Saturday morning, went out, got my second West Virginia bird. A couple Fridays later, I went to Indiana. And then just this past week, I did Massachusetts and Rhode Island. I got 2 birds in each of those states. So that's kind of,
Wow.
it's been a whirlwind. I mean, like, everything that could go right this spring went right, and stuff and beyond. I mean, like, there's so many things that have to go right to kill a turkey on any given day, and to put together that kind of a spring.
Oh yeah.
That many different states. I mean, weather was never a problem here. The worst weather I hunted was in West Virginia, and that didn't impact anything. Birds roosted where they needed to be roosted at. They acted like they needed to. I mean, it's just insane to think that many things could fall into place. It's one thing to go on a run for a couple of days, but that's what I was saying. I don't know that I could ever put together a season like that. I mean, I could hunt for the next 30 years and not have a spring like this one again.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
so,
I'm sure that Dan and Dave both are, and I'm sitting here wondering, are you in like some kind of, turkey hunting society that we don't know about, or what do you do for a living?
I got a couple of buddies that, have kind of been, when I'd go somewhere, they knew where I was at, what I was doing, how the trip was going, kind of thing, just a small group of people. And I got a buddy in Kentucky, Greg. He's like, "You need to buy a lottery ticket." He's like, "Have you got to buy a lottery ticket?" Or you'd go the next state, next day. And he's like, "Dude," he said, you got to be living right. That's all I got to say. He's like, "I've never seen anything, Yeah. I mean, literally, it's just, once in a lifetime kind of deal. I mean, just very lucky, very blessed, very fortunate. Been able to find the places to go, to have the kind of luck, not have birds be stubborn, not have, and especially out west, to not have weather be a problem. Is tough to manage that. So like I said, I know that may be I could spend the next 2 or 3 hours talking about this past spring and each one of those hunts, but it just, that's kind of the Cliff Note version of it. I mean, it just, so many things fell into place exactly like they needed to fall in place.
Yeah.
Nice. So, 2-part question here real quick then. So obviously hunting all those states, you've got a couple Grand Slams, but you said you flew out there. How'd you get all them turkeys back is my question.
Well, what I did there, the people that I hunted with, I breasted the meat out and they took it.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay.
So that's what I did there. But again, I was only thinking I'd kill 2 or 3 birds. So I'm like, I'll just put the fans, in my gun case and do that. But I had to go to Walmart and buy a carry-on bag to put all the fans and beards and spurs in. I didn't have, my suitcase and gun case, they would fit. So I'm like, well, Delta gives me a carry-on. I don't have a carry-on, so I'm going to go get a bag and put all, a small suitcase and just put them in that.
That's funny.
But yeah, the guy, the people that I hunted with, that's who I, breasted about and gave them to them.
I was thinking, man, we can go over to Nathan's house every Sunday until next spring and eat turkey.
Right. That's kind of what I was thinking.
The places that were close enough that I got a cooler, we got some meat in the freezer that we've not ate yet. But now that, like I said, that Western swing was just, that's what I did there.
Man, I tell you, yeah, that was a blessed season for sure.
Yeah, with those Grand Slams, and you bring the fans and stuff, are you going to do anything special with the mounts on them, like your tail fan mount?
I've got a freezer full of tail fans with a label on a Ziploc bag where they're from. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do there. A fan takes up a lot of space.
Sure.
So I don't know if I'm going to fan them out by year, by state. I don't know.
Yeah.
I got some time to think about that.
Definitely, cool. You could definitely do you a nice necklace for spurs.
Yeah. So we're, maybe just, use it for wallpaper.
Yeah.
We'll just have a fan wall there or something.
Man, that'd be great.
Awesome.
Nathan, something else we like to do every episode is we like to do a verse of the day. Unless we can, but we'll go ahead and get into that. Our verse of the day today, coming out of John chapter 14, verse 5 and 6, and we're reading out of the Passion Translation. And it says, Thomas said to him, "Master, we don't know where you're going, so how could we know the way there?" Jesus explained, "I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. No one comes next to the Father except through union with me. To know me is to know my Father too." And I think it's amazing that, ever since Adam and Eve fell, there has been a plan in place to get the children of God back to him, back to the Father. That was through the blood of Jesus. And that's the only way to get there. I know people think there's, a million ways to get to heaven. Well, this is the only way. It's through Jesus. And, but I mean, for him to reach down, I mean, when I was a nasty sinner, just like anybody else in the world, and for him to shed his blood for me when I wasn't worth it,
Yeah.
I don't know, it blows me away.
We sit here and we talk about our turkey hunts and our time in outdoors and different things like that. And, here Nathan just spent 12, however many days in 12 states. And yeah. I'm sure he got plenty of woods time where the turkeys wasn't calling back or, whatever, to where he could talk to God and he could have that fellowship with him. So it's not only, us sitting at home all the time, reading our Bibles and keeping our nose in the Word. Obviously, we got to know the Word, and the Word's got to be within us. But, the Word says to study thyself to show thyself approved, obviously. But, we spend that time with God in our own way. And us outdoorsmen, I believe, it's most of the time either on the way to the woods, while we're in the woods, or something of that nature. I mean, I know that's me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Amen. And, I think that's just something else that makes, to a person that's a Christian who is saved, I think that's something else that just makes spring gobbler season that much more special.
Oh, yeah.
When you think of, we celebrate Easter and the resurrection of our Savior in the springtime. And the same time, spring is a rebirth or resurrection of the earth coming out of the dormancy of winter.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, another connection,
Heck yeah. That's awesome.
Just to kind of go, I don't know, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole.
Well, the busy lives that we live today, the woods and the waters gives us the time that we need to reflect on the blessings that God has given us. And I'm so thankful for those opportunities. And this year, I'm telling you, I just had to take the day and go do it. I knew it was going to be a perfect day to hunt. Dan had just killed a bird the day before, and I knew the temperatures were going to be right. And I'm like, you know what? I'm taking off tomorrow. I'm going hunting. Because, Nathan, just as well as us, owning the turkey call business, during turkey season, most of the time you're slam-packed busy, and you ain't got time to hunt. I mean, I know that's the way it is for us.
I used to be that way, man. I did away with my list, and I build calls, and this is what I've got available. Because you're exactly right. It's crazy. You can post on Facebook all you want. If you want to call, now's a good time to tell me. Now's a good time to tell me.
Yeah.
And basically it was like when middle of March got here, it's like, I'm enjoying turkey season. I'm not building calls this spring.
Yeah. And see, that's one of the things, like if my brother was still alive and, he was running this business with me, come turkey season, if you didn't get in by a certain time, you wasn't going to get a call.
Yeah, and some people, like I say, don't get that. But you were, talking about verses and different things and stuff. And here's a verse that I just want to share, if you don't mind. That
sure, go ahead.
That's kind of eye opening for me. One of my favorite books of the Bible is Job. All of us go through different trials and problems and this and that. And
yep.
I'm not going to dive into some details, but I had about an 18-month stretch that just, absolutely just beat me up. But if you look at everything that Job lost in the beginning of those first few verses, that first chapter, go all the way to the last verse of Job in 42:17. And that last line, that last verse is, so Job died being old and full of days.
Yeah.
It never said it. There's nothing there that talked about the nights.
Uh-huh.
Weeping may endureth for a night, but the sun's going to come up in the morning.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it doesn't say anything that when Job went through all of those problems and trials and loss and everything, once God started restoring him, he died being old and full of days. And I'm just thinking, you know what? I just turned 40 a couple of weeks ago. And, I know that I'm going to live through some nights between now and whenever I pass away. But I really want to be a lot like Job and being full of days. And
you got that right.
That's just kind of the mantra of this spring, of what I was trying to do. Again, back to my buddy Brian, when that opportunity came up for me to go to North Carolina, I'm like, man, I think I want to do this. He's like, well, here's a quote for you. He said, if you think the cost of winning is expensive, wait till you see the receipt for regret.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I'm going,
yeah.
Just finished up last fall, going through a long stretch of a divorce. I've got my kids 50-50, and it's like every other weekend when I don't have my kids, I'm turkey hunting somewhere.
Yeah.
But there's no need to be just sitting around like, well, twiddling your thumbs. I'm going to go and try to be full of days those times.
Yeah, man, I don't blame you. I'm glad you took the step to go and do that for yourself, because, you obviously definitely needed it, and it paid off for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I say, it just opens up. I mean, the only thing I regret in life is that I didn't start seeing different parts of the country because of the wild turkey season.
Yeah. You know, I think of that, like what you're saying is you taking off and doing that for those however many days you went and going to 12 different states. I took off that one day, but, you know, I always tell my wife, I said, you know, it doesn't matter if you kill anything or if you do, or if you catch anything or if you do. It's the time being out there, enjoying God's country and just, you know, being a part of it.
Absolutely. I mean, again, you know, I mean, I grew up in Sandyville, West Virginia. You know, to think that I was ever going to see, you know, the Cascade Mountains and the horizon of Oregon.
Yeah.
You know, that's not something you think of, or see the Sacramento River Valley, or Rhode Island, or Massachusetts, or Thompson Falls, Montana, or the Northern Panhandle. It just that's just not something that you think of. But I mean, you know, I was one of those guys, like everybody else is probably going to be listening to this, that, you know, you always keep thinking one of these days. Well, I got news for you. You know, bring up your phone and turn on your calendar app. And, you know, it's where we're doing this podcast right now. It's May 24th. Just go ahead and scroll through May, June, July, August, September. Keep going. One of these days isn't on that calendar app.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't show it. And, you know, trying to think that one of these days you're going to do something, just, you know, put a plan together and do it.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, make the time. You'll thank yourself for it when you're doing it. And you'll thank yourself for it when you reflect back on those memories, whether it's the following week, month, year, years from now. Again, you know, one of these days it ain't on the calendar. I don't care. I don't care how far into the future you move with your phone app. You're not going to see one of these days on any of those dates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you're saying, like, you know, enjoy the days. You know, I mean, even if obviously all the cards fell in the right position for you, but even if you would have.
Absolutely. I mean, it's easy to sit here and think, oh, man, what? Let me tell you this. I mean, me personally, I think I hunted 17 days this spring.
Yeah.
Last year, I probably did 20 or 21 in West Virginia. I killed one bird.
Yeah.
Last spring, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter if it was hunter interference, coyotes, just bad breaks of a bird going left. You know, it zigged when it needed to zag.
Mm-hmm.
Last year we had a lot of jakes because 2 years ago we had an excellent hatch.
Yes.
Prior to that, we went several springs in a row with a terrible hatch. So that 2 to 5 year old gobbler population was extremely small. So, I mean, you even had situations last spring where you'd have 6, 8, 10 jakes run a gobbler off that you're working. Like literally, like, I mean,
oh yeah,
I probably had a decade worth of screw ups happen in 20 some days last spring.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I don't want to come across that, you know, killing a turkey is not the easiest thing in the world. I don't want to come across and, you know, that I have a season like this every year, because last year, I'm telling you, last year it wasn't that way at all.
And that's what I was going to say. You know, you having this stellar season this year, even if you hadn't have had that good of a season, you'd just still enjoyed every minute of it, and you'd have still had some amazing memories from it.
Absolutely. I mean,
but obviously, it's icing on the cake when you can get something like this.
It is. I mean, I couldn't get up, you know, almost every day of the season to hunt deer. I mean, after, you know, if I were to take the week of Thanksgiving off for rifle season, buddy, by Wednesday, I'm like, you know what? I don't know about this anymore. Or,
yeah,
you know, like, I mean, I'm not going to want to get up at 4:00 in the morning and drive 3 hours to the Elk River to trout fish, or the Williams River, even though I like to do that.
Yeah.
But let me tell you what I can do, because I've done it before. You know, I can still wake up before my alarm goes off 17, 18 days in a row, excited to go turkey hunting as if it's the first day again. Like, there's just, it's just, I don't know, man. It's just something that, it's my thing. Like you talked earlier, you know, I've got a passion for it. I don't get tired of it. Like, I'm just sitting here right now looking at my calendar, and I'm like, you know, it's over. You know, I'm sitting here thinking, like, well, you know, There's a couple of states in the Northeast that's open, but I look in the calendar, it's like I can't get to Maine and back fast enough.
Oh, I know.
For what I have available right now. So, it's over, and we'll start planning for next spring, now.
Yeah, we have a good customer base in Maine, and they're killing birds left and right up there. Man, I'm telling you, they're in them pretty hot and heavy. But, man, I tell you, we really sure appreciate you coming on tonight and telling us that story and that journey. I mean, it's awesome to hear it from you. I mean, I read it on Facebook and things like that, but it's awesome hearing it from the person. So,
well, thank you. Like I say, I know we just kind of very, very casually kind of skimmed over a lot of it, but I mean, literally, it's just it's one of those things. Like I say, I'm going to be able to look back on 20, 30 years from now and fondly thinking, like, man, how special was 2023? But it just it all was. I mean, literally. I mean, it doesn't matter. The West Virginia birds, Florida was awesome. Georgia with Tim was great. Indiana was special. Massachusetts, Rhode Island. Every place that I stepped foot in the spring was just such a magical place to just see so many different, unique habitats. To see, how differently birds, gobble. I mean, I'm within 120 yards of birds in Massachusetts, and you can barely hear them gobble. But in Indiana, you get them that close to Indiana, and they're shaking your soul. They're so loud.
There's this new fad of turkey hunters holding up their shell, smelling the fragrance of gunpowder, and I thought, I think Nathan's the one that started that.
I mean, I don't know if I want to say I'm a trendsetter, but I mean, I'm thinking
I've done that for years. I love the smell of it.
I can look back through old Facebook pictures from, the memories of the last couple of years ago, and the only other person I could think of that was doing it, me and Jeff McCamey from Tennessee, and it just seemed like this spring it blew up.
Yeah. No, I
mean, I started posting those pictures from Florida, and the next thing you know, it's like everybody's sniffing a shotgun shell.
Yeah. No, I
got a couple buddies that are like, "Look what you started." I'm like, I don't know about that, man.
I have done it before.
I think it's a weird one.
And I've seen Dan do it. But what I'm saying is, I've seen so much of you do it this year. I'm like, I think this guy started it.
I think the one that blows me is the one where they lay down with it in the selfie pose.
Oh, yeah. They do that with deer, too.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right, man. Well, like I said, we appreciate you coming on this evening, and it was great talking to you. So.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Hopefully it was everything you ever dreamed of.
Yeah, man. I mean, we had a blast. It was everything I ever dreamed of. Now I just need to do it myself.
Yeah. I mean, just go ahead and plan it and do it.
Yep. I tell you, we're going to have to do it. Me and Dan's been talking about it. One of the big things we want to do is do an elk hunt. And we're going to have to get that planned pretty soon.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this evening.
I can't help you with an elk hunt, but I can tell you right now, I mean, for a spring gobbler hunt, do it.
Yeah. Well,
there's too many fascinating and amazing places that this wild turkey lives at and calls home.
Oh, yeah.
It's worth experiencing something different than what we're used to.
For sure. I mean, you've definitely shown us that they're out there. All right, buddy. Well, we appreciate you coming on. Thanks again.
Hey, thank you, man.
All right. You have a good night. All right, guys. Be sure to check us out on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast. We're on about 18 different networks. Be sure to check us out on Facebook. We got a Facebook page. Be sure to check out Higher Calling Custom Turkey Calls. They're based right out of West Virginia here. And we thanks everybody for listening. Have a good evening.